Welcome to the Wealth Renegade podcast. I'm your host, Robbie Butler. Have you celebrated your financial independence today? If you're listening to this audio only, you won't be able to see our smiles, but the video people will see. My good friend Gary Allen from Continental Adjusters is here. Gary, thanks so much for being here.
Hey, Robbie, thanks for having me, and we'll enjoy our time together.
Yep. So you come from a very specific niche of the real estate business. The assets that you help protect are running across the US, Canada, Mexico. I think you've been into South America a little bit, but you come from your own background in real estate. So maybe before we start talking about the insurance area specifically, give us a little bit of your real estate background and how you got to this point.
Well, thanks, Robbie. I started off, I got my degree in real estate and finance. And I went to SMU, and while there, I interned with an old Dallas money individual whose dad built Highland Park and Highland Park Village. And Highland Park Village is really the first outdoor shopping center built in the United States. And in that journey, so to speak, I was able to be part of some very large transactions that introduced me to the brokerage side of the business. So I started brokering real estate, and then all my friends were saying the principal side's where you need to be. So then at that point, I transitioned into the principal side and raising money, equity, debt, um, really looking for underperforming type of assets. And from that point, really just moved in building portfolios, selling portfolios. And then at that point, I started building other businesses. I transitioned into going into private and public companies where I would take a public company or build it up and, write the business plan, raise the money, and then, build it and sell it. One of the companies that I built from scratch was called realcapitalmarkets.com, RCM1.com, where some of the biggest of the most well-known real estate owners, Sam Zell, Neil Blake, Walton Street Capital, all these guys wrote checks to us personally to build the platform. And, it was RCM1 is a marketing and transaction platform that today, I think we've done about 4 trillion in transactions and, to tune of, we sold and did a sale leaseback for Donald Trump's headquarters, the Pritzker apartment portfolio, the John Hancock life insurance headquarters, you name it. So, we went through that. That was sold to Lightbox, and it's got a really good home. And at this point, how I got into the public adjusting side is that I've got 2 dear friends that had been in this business for 34 years apiece. They came from the insurance side of the business where they represented the insurance companies, but they got tired of seeing how the insured were being taken advantage of. So they went on the other side of the fence and became what's called public insurance adjusters. And public insurance adjusters solely represent the owner or the policy owner. So now it allows a policy holder to be able to level the playing field when it comes to managing and settling an insurance claim. And so they asked me to come over and help them with my book of business and who I know. And plus I've got some background in doing this because many years ago, Doug Morris, who was the co-founder of the company, he and I ran losses together when we were young pups. And so that's how I got I got into it really young and understanding it. So then I came in to help them grow the business. And that's where we are now. We're in just about every state in the union. We've been from, Mexico to the Bahamas down to Chile. I mean, you name it, we're everywhere. But it's more importantly is we got on staff, very experienced estimators, adjusters, accountants, the whole professional team that can address all the different aspects of an commercial insurance claim.
Because you work
Now
only
it's
on
long.
because you work only on the commercial insurance side, there's a spectrum of real estate investors that will never see claims above 1 million, above 10 million, above 100 million. But
Mhm.
we know natural disasters are not getting lighter. They're not getting easier to deal with. And insurance companies are becoming more difficult to deal with as we're seeing more insurance claims. The last 2 years have been tough. The last year has been super tough. So for you, most people never have to think about the level that you deal with. And I've gotten to see some of the damage that you've been surveying. You've, traveled to Mexico and seen literally wasteland properties, and I'm sure in other markets in the US as well. Why do you feel that the public adjusting business is so essential to understand? What do you think most owners totally miss about what you provide?
I've got an analogy to this. And if you were to be summoned by the IRS for an audit, would you do the audit on your own? Well, an insurance claim is somewhat like an audit. The insurance company prays that you'll go get a contractor and say, let the contractor put the bid and we'll pay that. Well, the unfortunate thing is most contractors don't have the experience to really get down and the specialty to understand all the different aspects of policy provisions, which is what we do. We analyze that first to find out all the different buckets of money that are due the policyholder. So in doing that, then we go in and put together the estimate and everything. So the reality to it is that we level the playing field. We bring the expertise. We do this over 200 times a year, and we've done 4 billion in claims, and it brings peace back to the owner, because now we handle all the meetings, we handle all the paperwork, we handle all the negotiations. So the owner can focus on their business. Their core business is operating that asset and maintaining their tenants. So that's really the core piece to this is we bring to the table.
And yet, most people, because this is sometimes a once in a lifetime, hopefully not twice in a lifetime type experience, most people enter into it having no concept that you all exist. They call their insurance company. People think that's the step. They make the phone call, and the insurance company goes, "Don't worry, we'll take care of you. We'll give you your 10 cents on the dollar for your asset and hope that you go away." Some of the pieces that your original partners described as being unfair are absolutely prevalent. People don't understand. So, I mean, what is it out there that you think causes your business to not reach people? How do you miss out on the fact that you're such an essential piece of the relationship? So, what out there makes someone able to find out about you before this happens once in a lifetime?
That's a good question, Robbie. We are a reactionary type company. And what that means is that the only time we can go and do awareness campaigns, and sometimes those stick, sometimes they don't. Most people don't think about it. When they've got an emergency right now, they're thinking about, okay, I got to worry about my tenants. I've got to shore up my property. I've got to deal with all this. They don't think about what is Continental Adjusters, who's the public adjuster that we can call to help us.
Right, right.
So it's really more of identifying who the owner is, and then for us to either reach out directly to that owner or whoever that contact is of that property, or who do we know that may know that owner? Quite a few times that our relationships of all the deals that we've done over the years, all the claims that we've done over the years, there's a lot of times that one of our clients have worked with them or they know them or they're an equity partner. And we get quite a few equity partners that'll say, hey, listen, one of our deals burned down. Here's the guy you need to talk to. And they're expecting your call. So that's really, unfortunately, it's when it happens is when we have to, strike. On the bigger portfolio owners that are always having some kind of claim around the United States because you've got either weather related or fire related or some kind of flood related, they've got enough properties that once we have the relationship with them, they just call us and say, hey, we've got another property over here in Raleigh, or we got a deal down in Tampa, go take a look at it. So it's, a lot of it's based on, the ownership type and size, but, the single owner, we're the best bet for a single owner because we take that burden and guesswork off their shoulders. And another thing too, many owners don't understand that every time that they speak to an adjuster, that adjuster is already sizing them up of of what's being said, and that could either limit, what they're going to be paid, deny even possibly a claim. So I always say, get someone on your side that understands this business and let them be your mouthpiece. And so it's a very important to level that. I call it level the playing field.
Yeah. You said it so well as well that if a business sits in a reactionary position, like you're always running to catch up. And unfortunately, the source of all of your business is often not predictable. The tenant starts a fire in their oven, which spreads to 4 units, then 30 units, and then wipes out a complex. And no one is sitting here getting excited about anticipating that type of damage. And yet it happens, and suddenly you have literal fires, you have metaphorical fires all over your balance sheet. And that's when they're supposed to call you, but they don't know about it. So you mentioned sometimes you find out through equity owners in property and word spreads naturally. But on another case, there's a gentleman, and we've had this conversation offline. Gentleman of mine, good friend, has got several thousand units. And he was asking some question about something I had brought up publicly. And I said, oh, it's because I hired a public adjuster. And he goes, well, I don't even understand how they get paid. And I went, what, you've never hired one for your breadth of your portfolio? Because he'd never had the 7-figure claim that demanded him to do more research. He'd always either worked it out or taken the loss. He said, oh, it's 100 grand this year, but that's how much I make per month in my cash flow. So he's not having that crisis where he needs to solve the problem. And so it goes unsolved. How do people know that they're hiring a qualified public adjuster? How do you find out, all right, this is a reputable person I can trust with my claim?
So there's a number of things. First of all, each state requires an adjuster to be licensed. I'm licensed. Our firm is licensed in most of the states in the United States. Some states won't allow public adjusters where you have to really be an estimator, so to speak. But first of all, you go and make sure that in that state, that individual or that company is licensed. Second of which, it never hurts to go look at the Better Business Bureau. Look at the Better Business Bureau and see if they've got ratings there. For us, we're A plus in the Better Business Bureau. We've been in this business as Continental for 24 years, but each one of the individual principals been doing it for 34 years apiece. So we've got, reviews are always good in some aspect as long as they're not paid reviews. But, when you've been doing it as long as we've been doing it, we've got, we've got a good track record. And, the Department of Insurance for each state's your first place to make sure that they're licensed.
Tell us a little about the process. So someone is fortunate enough to know about you, let's call it before the building burns down or before the tornado rips off the entire front side or some
Right.
dramatic claim occurs. So they know about you, dramatic claim occurs, then what happens?
So first thing we do is, we will ask for their policy to review their policy with them just to make sure that we can add value to what they're doing. Some people may not have, they may not be insured for that peril or their deductible is so high that they're self-insured. So, we look for things like that to do a strategy with them to make sure one, we can provide value. And then two, if we have deemed that we can provide value, we've got a very short contract. It's a contingency based contract on what we recover, not on the total claim, only what we recover. And, each state has a maximum of what that fee is. Our fee starts off at 10% on larger claims. Sometimes those get dwindled down when you get into the multi-million-dollar claims, those tend to get dwindled down. But at the end of the day, it starts off at 10. And normally for us, it's we found we did a little study, and over the course of the last 5 years, our increase has been anywhere between a 40 and a 70% increase in the claim. Not because we're embellishing anything. It's only because we've uncovered hidden damage. We've uncovered additional obscure policy provisions that give them additional monies. And then at that point, it's on a percentage. So we're aligned because we're based on a contingency. We don't get paid until the policyholder gets paid. So it's not like we're charging up front and hopefully for the best. We only get paid once the policyholder starts receiving checks, then our our fee is paid on that recovery.
Gary knows this well, and some of my listeners are aware that I've had over $1 million in insurance claims in my own experience. And the sentence I'll say here is there's still ongoing issues with my own insurance company and my own experience there. To pay somebody 10% to go and have them stand up against the insurance company and communicate very clearly, this is why we are requesting this dollar figure, to have the conversation, but to have the conversation from a basis of knowledge about the policy. Insurance policies are how many pages, Gary?
Oh, I mean, there's some 200 pages. I mean, between your general conditions and all your provision, I've got one right now between everything. It's about 245 pages, but they're extensive.
So, for the owner of an asset to sit up against an insurance company with all their professionals and claim to even grasp their own insurance policy is a total fallacy. You do not stand a chance to work on your own against insurance. The public adjuster runs interference, understands the policy, and is able to say, no, this is why we're expecting this coverage because you've outlined it in your policy. And yes, insurance companies have paperwork where they'll add in a provision in paragraph 3, and in paragraph 33, they'll remove that same provision. And so the public adjuster stands there and goes, no, you can't remove this because of this allowance that you make in paragraph 63. That is, now we're down into page 50 of the policy or page 75. That is the role you all play. For you, could you tell us a little story maybe of one of those claims that you had some significant success with?
Well, I love my Ritz Carlton story. It's an amazing story that back when I want to say it was Wilma that hit Puerto Rico. I'm pretty sure as well. We go through so many of the different hurricanes, but it decimated Puerto Rico, and Ritz Carlton was one of the assets. And the insurance company came back with their final offer of $17 million for that, and so they were just totally upset. Their broker, the risk broker, called us and said that they've got a problem. So we reached out to them and started talking through the claim, what was uncovered. And then we said, let's go down and take a look at it. So we went down, looked, found out that the place was just riddled with mold and all sorts of things that were not even addressed in the policy. And so in the next discussions were, okay, what is it that you think that you need to be able to get this thing back on track? And they said, well, minimally based on our construction estimates internally, we're at a 90 to $95 million mark. And that's to get us back open and operational. Well, after we brought in our engineers and our specialists, we ended up settling for 250 million.
Oh, man.
So that's a big one. So, I mean, this is really a large claim. I mean, on the average, we've got an apartment complex where the insurance company offered them, I think, 500,000. We got them 4.5 million. We've got just case study after case study of these types of stories. And again, it's not about giving a policyholder more than they're due. It's a matter of identifying the things that are in their policy that can be documented and retrieved. For us, we're not adversarial with the insurance companies. The good thing is we've worked so long in this business. We know many of their independent adjusters that they typically hire. So 9 times out of 10, we will have been on site with them somewhere. So it becomes a discussion point in the very beginning where we're starting to agree on things to make those changes to bring in, the allowables. And so it's not one of these where we build all of our cases, say, oh, here it is now, yes or no. So we're getting approvals during this journey. So it makes it helps to expedite the process and get back to the property what's really needed and what's allowable.
If you think about the math that Gary shared, he said 17 million, they needed 95 million, so they needed 5 times more than what insurance offered. And they ended up getting 10 times more than insurance is first offered. And that probably did those owners good. So whether you're an LP in a deal, you're just a passive investor, you have one seat at the long table, whether you're an individual owner somewhere sitting with, your nice self-storage facilities, or perhaps you like strip centers off in the East Coast in the country, or perhaps you've got your syndication team rolling up significant property over the country, looking for new assets, buying portfolios like Gary did in his past career. The public adjusters are people you need to know, because someday when it happens, you don't want to have to go build that relationship while you're having to house all your tenants in some hotel somewhere, and you're basically bankrolling that hotel owner because you own their property now, as you're renting out the entire floors for the tenants you've now displaced with your insurance claim. And to have somebody like Gary on your team is a huge asset. So Gary, how do people get in touch with you if they know someday they may have that type of issue to solve?
That's real simple. And I can be called on my cell, and it's 972 or you can go to our website. It's continentaladjusters.com. And you can see it's a very simple website, but that's where we have a lot of our contact information. Something I was going to mention too, Robbie, is that many people think, "Oh, I'll wait till the insurance company makes me an offer, and if I like it, I won't need you." But what a lot of people don't understand is that insurance company may give them an offer of what they think is okay, but if they're leaving on the table, 40 to 70% money without contention, why would you not bring somebody in the very beginning, like Continental, and let us control the tempo and the tone of the claim process and take it off the shoulders? It's, so many people say, "Oh, we've got this handled." I said, "Okay, we can always be called in, if you think there's a problem." But I tell everybody, why would you want to wait till there's a problem when we can get it done quicker and probably get a lot more um, advances done sooner and larger than doing it on your own? I mean, a lot of these companies have their own construction companies, and they think, "Oh, our construction company handles that." Well, the construction part of the division aren't really insurance specialists, or they may have a risk manager, and the risk manager is has come from the insurance side of the business, but how many claims are they handling a year? And are they up to date on the newest precedents that are in place that help the policyholder or could hurt them if not done correctly? So these are things I try to tell people. Even if you've got your own risk manager, we're not the opponent of the risk manager. We're the risk manager's right hand person, team, that can help them get this thing done quicker and much more.
If you've got 100 tenants that are displaced, you want to solve that problem as fast as possible. So give
Even
Gary
if
a
you have
call.
one, even if you have one.
Yeah, and funny you say that about that one tenant. That is actually, I had 3 tenants displaced on my claim, and we're still not to the bottom of it. And that the second coverage, the coverage B in the residential policy, got
Yeah,
extinguished a long time ago. So Gary's the guy who can help. What were you about
yeah.
to say?
Something else I was gonna tell you too, on the commercial side, we've got different aspects of our business that not only manage the claim, but also we've got content specialists that go do contents part of the claim. Plus, we have another accounting arm that actually does the forensic accounting to be able to submit the business interruption side of the claim. So it's not just about measuring a building; it's about all these different components that we internally specialize in.
It's awesome. Yep. What a skill set. And Gary, thanks so much for being here today. We'll, of course, look forward to hearing about more successful claims resolved. And yet, I guess the biggest ideal is when you solve them so fast that the people don't even notice that their whole building burned down, and, $100 million wiped out, $100 million put back.
All I can say is that even if you have a question on a policy, right now, hurricane season is on us, and we're happy to do a pre-risk, a post-risk analysis on your policy to just kind of see, where you are, to give you some advice on that, because we do that as well. But again, if you're going through an acquisition, we'll happy to look at it to see if we can help you identify things that could be put on your seller's insurance policy and not yours.
Brilliant. Well, thanks very much, Gary. And be sure to reach out to Gary at Continental Adjusters and his cell phone in the recording.
972-878-4473.